like, or rather it looks like I've got everybody here in the YouTube chat. And if you guys are hearing me, if you can go ahead and make some comments in the YouTube live chat area, I'll still try to make this work, although it's not quite the way that I thought it would be. So if anybody is hearing me, if you could just comment over here in the live chat section, we'll go ahead and I'll present as planned. Okay, great. Awesome. Another thing, since you are hearing me and we're getting some comments there in the chat, would everybody go ahead and introduce themselves? I know some of you have done that already, but if you want to go ahead and do that again, since everyone is online now. Awesome, Ken. So we should have a total of 4 people here. Kenneth, I want to say Linda is here as well. And Petra. Hello, Petra. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to move to the presentation. My hope for this was that we were actually going to be more conversational and not really just a presentation. So we're in this group, and I believe all of you should be from the Chingu cohorts. So we've got people spread all over the world, literally. Hey, Tifa. Also, while I'm talking, if you guys want to, would love to know where you are. So to my point that I was just about to say is, you know, we've got people across the globe in these cohorts, and people at all different kinds of levels. People who have been, some people have jobs in programming, they're already working developers. Some people have been studying as long as a year and just want to keep learning and keep improving. Some people have just started, or maybe only, if you're like me, you've been doing it for several months, but are by no means an expert. So one of the challenges is trying to figure out between all those different levels is, what are the needs from a group like this? And if we were chatting, that was going to be something I really wanted to find out from you guys is where your level is, what you know, what you don't know, what you're having challenges with. But for today, I will monitor the chat. And what I will do is throw out questions. And if you can chime in with your answers, then we will go ahead and communicate that way. And moving forward, I'll really work on this system and figure out how to get everybody into the Hangout so that we have a true, if you've ever used Google Hangouts before, then you can have an interactive group where people are all sharing their screen. And if you want, you can use your camera and your microphone. We've used it a couple of times in the You Don't Know JavaScript book group. And so that has worked pretty well. We've been able to ask each other questions and talk interactively, and if we want to veer off topic, then that's okay too. So I see Spectre42. How are you doing? And I'm thinking that we might have, I know of some of the times that I saw some of you were on probably Greenwich time, Greenwich Mean Time. So I'm wondering if some of you are over in the UK or where people are. So if you want to chime in on that information, please feel free. And then I'm going to go ahead and start with kind of the topics that I had in mind. But let's keep that chat going and let me know what you guys are thinking and what your challenges are. All right, we need to do some resizing here and move to the presentation. Netherlands, awesome. All right. Trying to get this here so I can not shrink the presentation too much, but also see all of your comments. Here we go. All right. It's a little fuzzy. Even fuzzier. There we go. All right. So moving on here. Part 1, I think we've already working on. Introduce yourself and where you live. We have done some quick introductions, and we're starting to see information on where people are. That's one of the coolest things about working in development and working through these Slack channels, I think, is I love seeing and collaborating with people all over. It just brings this really neat perspective. Number 2, if you guys, we won't literally just stop here, but as I go forward, if you would chime in on what your background is, maybe write a couple of thoughts on you know, what your goals are. So what brought you to coding? And you know, it can be a couple quick phrases. Looking for job, looking for career change, looking to grow into a new position, perhaps. I will share personally, I am a career changer. I've done everything from teach public school for 4 years to manage coffee shops, worked for Starbucks at one point, and finally to culinary school. So I spent a few years in culinary school and then managed a nonprofit. So I've had a wide array of different experiences. Presently, I support myself with an e-commerce business where I sell merchandise online, and I do that here in the U.S. By the way, I do live in the U.S. I live in a state called Indiana in the Midwest. So I am presently supported by an e-commerce business, and I am looking to getting into coding and have been studying Free Code Camp for the past probably 4 to 5 months and have been front-end certified. And also, as I think all of you know, you joined the channels and are probably watching this because you found the same curriculum guides that I did, which is really to go beyond Free Code Camp. So not just the front-end cert and the back-end cert and the data visualization, but really getting into computer science and learning a lot more about how everything's working underneath the hood. Okay, and if I remember correctly, I think L Halliday is Linda. I'm trying to remember. And you're from Atlanta. Cool. Very good. So moving ahead, if you guys, because I think there's a bit of a delay on what I'm saying and probably where from my speaking to where you're hearing it, I think there's just a slight delay. I'm always curious what people have been most surprised by in their journey. So we all maybe have some concept of what it's like to code, and we get into it, and maybe something turns out a lot better than we thought, and maybe some things are not as good as we thought or harder than we thought. So on that, if you would, if anybody's willing to share that in the chat, that would be perfect. In the meantime, I will go forward with my ideas on that. I think on the pleasant side, what I've been most surprised by is just the sheer number of resources that are out there. And the guides that were put out are a perfect example of that. Here we have such a big list of things that consist of books, online courses, um, and so on that are all free. Googling, just really just the vast amount of resources. That's been really surprising to me that you can really get an education in this if you want to and you're willing to put the work in. My least favorite thing, I would have to say, that's a tough one, but maybe how detailed the work is, and that one little colon here, one little bracket there can just throw everything out of whack. And of course, that makes total sense. Computers being what they are, reading binary and being so precise that if everything's not exactly in order, then suddenly all your code's thrown off and nothing works right. And you can spend, anywhere from half an hour to a half a day looking for that one little typo. And when you finally find it, it's so great, but that one little thing can just throw you off. Cool. So we have Spectre42. You are from Lithuania. That's awesome. And a Master of Chemistry that you found out that you really like programming. Very cool. So keep those comments coming. And as this lag catches up to you guys, if you want to share also what you found really cool about programming and what you found really challenging about programming, I'd love to hear that too. So the idea of today, and folks, long-term, this is a support group. So when we're, again, would love for you all to be live, to be talking, and to interact with you, and that's the long-term goal. I know we also have at least probably 2 people who can't be here today, but have said they want to be here, but they had other commitments. So the goal is to have this be a support group, a check-in group. Every week you'll kind of report on where you are, how are you doing, what are things that you need, are there questions that you have, and after today, I imagine we spend more time just talking about technical questions, problem sets that you're working on, whether it be in CS50 or issues that come up and you don't know JavaScript that you maybe want to talk about. So that's what it looks like after today. In terms of today, I thought to just set like a baseline of what's everybody doing for studying? Are you able to find time to study? Is that a challenge? If you do find time to study, are you able to stay motivated, or are you struggling with keeping on task? I know those are some of the things that I faced initially, and just figured there were probably others out there as well. So that's why this presentation was prepared the way it was. And I'm just checking the comments here. Kenneth is from Ghana. Awesome. And realized that building small projects that work on their own can help solidify your understanding. That's a great point. And in fact, you'll see that later in the slides here. But definitely building projects, I think, is the best way to learn. So that's a great share, Ken. Thanks. There you go. That was a great lead in. So the first thing I did when I wanted to learn how to program, be a developer, was pick up a book. Why? Because in life we learn from books. We have textbooks in classes. We read books on our own to get better. And so I got the book. It was on HTML, CSS, and just a little teaser of JavaScript at the end. So I first started just reading the book and trying to understand the information. Didn't work that well. So finally I started typing in all the exercises. That's when things actually started sinking in. If any of you have tried just reading a book, you've probably quickly figured out it's not really the best way to learn how to program or write code. So immediately, even the sample exercises that were just an example in the book, I started going in and saying, you know what, I'm going to make that work. I'm going to try and see if it works the way he says it does, and I'm going to play around with it a little bit. So even better than that, because I kept looking for a better way rather than this huge book, I started finding out that I found Free Code Camp basically. And I think the reason that Free Code Camp is so great is with that inline editor, the environment that lets you write code right in the web browser and gives you that immediate feedback is just perfect for learning. So rather than reading about it, rather than just trying it on your own and then uploading it and then tweaking it and seeing if it works, you've got the code right there in the window, automatic tests, feedback is on the spot, and you can see it happening. But if you guys are here with me today, you probably already know all that, and you're probably already on the Free Code Camp bandwagon. So you guys probably understand that very well by now. So even a notch above that, beyond the beyond Free Code Camp and coding in the window, becomes applying learning to a project of your own. Now this is something I've just started recently. With finishing the front end certification, I suddenly had a lot more time on my hands, but I wanted to keep working on web pages. So you know, I'm also learning chess right now. And I thought, hey, why not try to build a chessboard on a website? And then once I got the chessboard up, I said, hey, how can I get chess pieces to show up on the web browser? So little by little, I don't know exactly where this project's going to go. I'm just starting it out. But what it is it's teaching me to research something totally different. There's no pattern for this. I can find web pages out there that are helping me do it. But when you just strike out on your own and you say, what am I interested in doing? What would be fun to do? You can really learn a lot more than if you're just doing an assignment. All right, I'm going to jump back over to the comments here, and I see the most recent comment here. I haven't seen anything about the Hangout, and I will share that this is the first time I've tried to use YouTube to do a Hangout. And the Hangout is integrated with YouTube. And just to be completely honest, I thought the YouTube link and the Hangout link would be exactly the same. So I'm not sure if it's Submerge. Apologize for the pronunciation. If you have any information about that, I'm happy to take it. This is definitely one area where I'm learning as well. But I could not find a link in the Hangout where I could share it out. But hopefully we get that going in the future. All right, as I go here, if any of you have done some projects on your own, if you've tried something out, please share that. I would love to see those comments over in the live chat. So if you have worked on a project or had an idea, put that up in the chat. Share it with other people. Would love to see some brainstorming around what kinds of neat projects that people could work on to develop their skills. And at the end, guys, when you're doing your own project, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's just yours. It's a great time to experiment. If it doesn't look perfect, that's okay. But it's a great time to just make it look the way you want to look and change different values, change different properties, play with the CSS, and just have a good time. This section I'm not going to go over too much, but one day I had someone asking me a lot of questions about, you know, well, should I do this? Should I do that? I know that in CS50 we were talking about CS50 problem set 3, and he said, well, they say, you know, that I should do this first and then that. And my comment was, you know what? If you get the right result, they're not going to know. Even with this guide that we're all following, there's a lot of debate over people saying, hey, this book, I don't believe in reading books, or I think this book should come later. Why do I have to read that book first? And so I guess my feeling on that is, You know yourself best. You understand what you do and don't know, and you probably know how you learn the best. So be critical and absolutely take the advice, but I think also um, know yourself and make your own decisions. So if you're into a book and you say, you know what, I don't understand this concept, I think I need to actually program in JavaScript. And let's take that example of you don't know JavaScript is the first thing on that list. There are things in that book that are very tricky. And if you don't understand them on the first go round, I think that's okay. And it may be something to where you mark that off in the book and say, you know what, in a month, I'm going to come back to the module section. And once I've actually written more JavaScript, maybe I've written a module or two, then I can come back to this and I might understand it better. But until I've done it, I don't think I actually understand it. And on the right side, the topic is use discipline. And the idea there is mainly don't jump around. And probably most of you know this already, but going back to what I said at the beginning, there are so many resources, there's so many classes, there's so many YouTube videos and people putting content out that it's very easy to want to go from one thing to another thing to another thing. But if you think about a job situation, and if you think about interviewing for jobs, employers are really going to value discipline and persistence. So jumping from one course to another book without necessarily finishing is probably going to work against you in the long run. So just kind of a caution there on the discipline side. All this stuff sounds great, but also finishing what you started, I think, is going to pay off in the long run. All right, so going over to the live chat, Ken, sometimes the challenge comes to confidence. Let's say I solve a problem with code, but then because there are so many ways to solve it, I start to doubt my skills, if my skills are pro or not. Yeah, can anybody like thumbs up or we got our emojis here on that one? I agree. So now I have to close my emojis without closing the chat so I can see what you guys are saying. There's a learning curve to this YouTube stuff for sure. Yeah, Ken, absolutely. And I often, sometimes will get paralyzed even starting a problem, starting a challenge because I think, well, should I do it this way? Should I do it that way? I don't know exactly what method they want me to use. So I kind of freak out a little bit and think, man, I have to know exactly the right way to do this. I'm going to share a podcast with you guys. It's called Code Newbies. I'm going to type that in. Code Newbies, very fun podcast. I don't know what night it comes out, but obviously you can listen to it anytime. And they do have every Wednesday at, if you're in the US or in that time zone, it's 9 p.m. Eastern time. So you could translate that to your time. But it's a Twitter chat for an hour. And I've done one or two of them, and it's really fun. But one of those podcasts was listening to a speaker, and the speaker said, it's okay to break things. And that totally changed the way I approach problems, because before that, I think I was always so concerned that I would type some code in, that code would get down on, not on paper, but the code would get into my editor, and that it would be so broken that I wouldn't be able to fix it. And the truth is, there's never been a time where I haven't been able to fix my code. And in fact, when I just jump in and just start writing code, it actually turns out I get things done a lot faster. If I start with something, it's much, much better than if I just sit there forever waiting for the perfect thing to come up. So great point, Ken, on that. I'm still trying to get my emojis. If anybody knows how to get this emoji little board to disappear, let me know. Oh, I did it. All right, very cool. So discipline. If you guys, if you have listened to podcasts, please share them. I'd be very curious to know what things you guys have listened to. Um, so I'm a big advocate of I try to multitask if I'm driving for a long distance or if I go on a long walk for, say, an hour. I have 2 dogs, and sometimes I will take them on an hour-long walk. But I also will put in a podcast so that as I'm walking, I can listen and learn about code. If you guys have any things like that, please share them in the comments. All right, another tip here, and I'm going to type this one in. Right there in the chat section is a course. This course is on Coursera. It is free, and it's called Learning How to Learn. And basically, the material on this page is right out of that course called Learning How to Learn. Over here on the left under New Material. So when you first start to learn something, you don't have a frame of reference. It's brand new to you. And your brain needs to start incorporating all these new terms, new concepts, new ideas. And so your brain starts to form these neural pathways to start to form the material. You're not going to understand it all the first time if you're facing a bunch of terms and ideas that you've never seen before. So it helps to try to actively understand those things, but also give yourself a little bit of a break and know that you're not going to understand it 100%. And after a set period of time, walk away and go do something else. When you take a break from the material and then you come back to it at a later time, you'll find that it suddenly seems a lot easier and you're understanding a lot more than what you did the first time. And maybe you even come up to it and say, you know, I don't know why this was so hard. I got it. Now it totally makes sense. So it could be, and this happens while you sleep, that your brain is actually processing new connections that it was starting to form as you read this new material. So just to summarize that, you have to take some time away from brand new concepts in order for your brain to fully process it. And if you check out this course, Learning How to Learn, they'll talk to you about focused mode and diffuse mode. And basically, those are 2 different ways that your brain is working. And diffused mode is when you relax. Focused mode is when you're concentrating. I'm not going to present that in depth today because you can definitely check out that free course. And it's video based, so it's very easy to learn from. Now under plan, basically here, I've spent a lot of time thinking about, for me, what works well at what time of day. So if I'm covering a new item, if it's new material, I know I'll be in that focus mode. That, for me, works best first thing in the morning. Now, I have time in the mornings where I can study. I wake up pretty early. And so usually I kind of think about what I want to study, and I pick the harder concept. And the harder concept to me is the one that I do first thing in the morning. Now, I know that later in the day, in the afternoon, I have a little lag where I get sleepy. So in the afternoon, I tend to focus more on repetitive tasks, things that are easier to do. Emails are easy to write for me in the afternoon. So that may be something I do, just something that just require the focus. And again, in the morning, I may start with the hardest thing, and I may do that for 1 or 2 study sessions. Basically, that would mean an hour. But after that hour, I will take a break and I'm going to go to something else where my brain can relax. And underneath, it's going to keep processing the content that I worked on at the beginning, the new material that was harder. So as we go on, if you guys have any tips, please, this is not about me. I am really sharing things that I've learned. As you're hearing, a lot of this stuff is coming from courses that I've taken. Learning how to learn. This is stuff that I'm right now in the middle of taking. And I picked this up from other people in the cohorts that told me about it. Please share what's worked for you guys with learning. What are things that you found that are helpful? Study tips. Are these new to you? Are these things you've already been doing? I want to learn from you guys, and the strength of the group is in learning from each other. All right, next section that I would like to talk about is habits. Okay, so a few slides here on habits. And why? Why are we talking about a habit? Some people think a habit is probably just like smoking. Some people think that, it's eating or running or something like that. Really, a habit is anything you do. Another way to think of it is as a routine. So our brain has has a limited supply of willpower. So when your willpower is depleted, you can only work so long on something new. You're going to try really hard. Today I am going to, let's just say, not smoke. If that is something, I don't smoke personally, but if someone wanted to try to do that, they would put a lot of attention and power into that. And maybe they could do it on an easy day. And maybe the second day is an easy day. But on the third day, they have a tough day and they're stressed out doing other things. And their willpower is eaten up by all that other stress. So when you're trying to form a new habit, you have a limited amount of willpower to exert to it. So the reason that I'm talking about routines and willpower is that if you're trying to develop a routine of studying, of spending time coding, then you want to do everything you can to try to make that a new habit. Why? Because if you have a difficult day, if you have a stressful time, then the first thing to go is going to be that new thing that you're trying to do. So if you say your goal is to spend an hour and a half after work, and you're going to spend that time coding, you say, no matter what, I'm not going to turn the TV on. I'm not going to go down the street to the bar or the restaurant. I'm not going to pick up the phone or get on Facebook. I'm going to study. I'm going to code. Well, again, you could do that maybe day 1, day 2, day 3. But then when you have a stressful day or when your energy is low, you're going to revert to other routines. So the idea is to create a new routine, and then it doesn't take up your willpower to do it. So the way you do that is make it a priority. So it sort of becomes the top of your list. You know that if nothing else, I'm going to spend that hour and a half coding. When I get home, I need to do that. Now do that for a good 3-4 weeks, and then it's a new routine. Then it will become automatic, and you can take your willpower and you can divert it to something new. I'll have a book in just a little bit here that you guys can check out if you're curious more about this and more about habits. So on the right, the question is what techniques do you use to get this habit to become a routine? So number 1 is use a cue. And a cue can be simple as a Post-it note reminding you So if you want to code when you get home after work, you might have a Post-it note near your doorway or near where you put your keys up when you walk in the door. You have that note there that says, go to computer. Don't forget coding practice. Maybe it's on your refrigerator. If you go for dinner after work and then you get dinner and you want to go code. These days, cues are simple. We can set alarms on our phone. We can have notifications that go off for us. Why? Why is this important? Well, if you just got home and you're thinking about coding or you're thinking about doing something else and you're having that internal debate, suddenly your phone pops up and the message is on the screen and it says, 90 minutes of coding, start now. And it's almost like a little guilt. It's almost like your little friend that's popping up to say, hey, don't forget, this is something you really intended to do. Now, are you really going to skip it? So that cue can really help. Point 2 here, deliberate practice, is just about using that focus mode of your brain. And again, if you just joined, I think I had seen somebody just joined recently. Learning How to Learn is a great course that talks about focus mode. Try a Pomodoro, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Finally, add a reward. Doesn't have to be food. It doesn't have to be a physical reward. Actually, for me right now, my reward is doing the 100 days of code. So I've committed to starting on, I think it was January 3rd, to code every single day for 1 hour, and that runs for 100 days. Now, as it gets towards the end of the night, I start to get really nervous if I haven't posted my tweet that says what day I'm on and that I did my coding. That for me is actually serving as a reward, because once I tweet out what I've done, I have people from all over that are commenting back, telling me good job, free code camp, sometimes comments on my tweet. I've got people from Scandinavia, from London, from the US, all over that are commenting. And then I share back too, the same thing. So some kind of reward. It could be the accomplishment. You sit for a moment and just think about, man, I solved this and it feels really good. Why? Because if you actually physically experience a reward, or you have an emotion of pride or satisfaction, it's actually going to strengthen your habit. So if you take a minute, even if you go and tell someone in your home, tell a family member what you did, have them tell you good job, have them listen to what you did, that could be a reward. So it's really up to you, but that 3-step process is what it takes. Have a cue, something in your environment, practice deliberately, so think about what you're reading, understand it, and then experience a reward, even if it's just joy. Make sure you take the time, take 60 seconds to relish in what you've done. All right, now that's it. Is it, I'm Josiah or Hosea, probably Hosea, perhaps? You said that's it. I'd love to know what you mean by that's it, if you want to elaborate on that. Also, if any have used the Pomodoro, I'd love to know that. Just type yes if you have used the Pomodoro. I have tried the Pomodoro on and off for years. When I started Free Code Camp and I looked through the challenges, I saw the Pomodoro Project and I thought, oh, wow, people know about the Pomodoro timer. I found this when I was studying time management, and I used it a little bit, and then I didn't use it. Again, that habit thing. You're focused at first, and then when you take your eye off the ball, when you forget or you get stressed out, then you kind of lose your habit. Well, that's what I did. I tried the Pomodoro. I used a little bit, and then I didn't. And periodically over the years, I've gone on and off with it. once again, in the Learning How to Learn course, they talk about the Pomodoro timer. So here's how it works. And I may just go ahead and pull it up here, but you guys aren't seeing that. We'll just talk through it because it's really simple. And you don't need a web page. You don't need anything. You guys did see it. It was just later. Okay. You don't need anything special for the Pomodoro timer. It's very simple. I'm going to sit down to work. I'm going to work on, let's say I'm going to read chapter 3 in book 3 of You Don't Know JavaScript. That happens to be where I am right now. And before I'm going to start right now. So I'm going to start the timer. Now I'm not really going to read. That was just an example. But what I would be doing right now is for 25 minutes, I'm doing nothing but reading that chapter. So before I do that, go back to the slide here. So before I do that, I'm going to make sure that for 25 minutes, that's all I could do. I am going to, down here at the bottom, I'm going to turn off my cell phone. Well, I'll mute it. I won't turn it off. I'm going to turn off all the notifications. If I'm at my computer, I'm going to close all windows that are not related to what I'm doing. I'm going to close that Facebook. I'm going to close that Twitter. And I'm also going to share here in the house that that's what I'm doing. So for 25 minutes, I'm going to be working. Hey, just so you know, for the next 25 minutes, I'm going to read this chapter, okay? That's important because it's a lot harder when someone walks up and interrupts you to tell them at that moment in time, hey, I really can't talk to you right now. I'm reading. And then you've already been interrupted. So if you take the initiative and be a little proactive, just kind of share with people that that's what you're doing. And hey, you know what happens after 25 minutes? Look up back here at point 1 is that I get a 5-minute break. So if you share that ahead of time, it helps a lot. So for 25 minutes, why does this help? Why does it work? It sounds silly if you just, you may be thinking right now, does this work? Well, it has helped me with procrastination because I know that all I have to do is sit down and I decide ahead of time, this is what I'm going to work on, and I'm only going to work on this. So for the next 25 minutes, I'm either just going to work on this function or read this chapter or work on this algorithm. And that takes the pressure off. I don't have to solve it. I don't have to have the answer to my whole tic-tac-toe game. All I have to do is work on one part. All I'm going to do is work on how do I display my X on my tic-tac-toe board. That's all I have to do. Suddenly, the challenge seems so much smaller, and I know for 25 minutes I can work on that and that only, and then I get a break. So it helps. It has helped me overcome procrastination. It has helped me break through things that I thought were too hard because I just basically chunk it down into one unit of work, and that's the only thing I have to do. The funny thing is once you get going, a lot of times you go past 25 minutes, which is fine, but it is important, again, going back to your brain modes of focused versus diffuse thinking. Your brain can only stay in focused mode for so long, and then it needs a rest. So when you go into rest mode, your brain goes back to forming those connections in your network, and it needs that. So do take breaks. And if you do wander off during the 25 minutes, just gently remind yourself and say, oh, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be messaging right now. I'm supposed to be working on this algorithm. Let me go back to that, and I can do this on the break. No problem. So the Pomodoro, it really does work. I just wanted to reinforce this because, again, I've done it off and on over the years. No, it doesn't. At first, it seems too simple. And it seems a little weird, like I've got to work for 25 minutes, but what if I get done and then I want to go on to something else? Or what if I need more than 25 minutes? Then you can just set another Pomodoro. If you haven't finished your task, let the timer run out. Take a quick break, stand up, stretch, go fill your water glass, and then go right back at it. Work on the same thing for another 25 minutes. So when you stick with it, it really does wonders. And this is a little trick I've learned, is when you're in an office, which I was in an office with a lot of people. It was open. It was a cubicle, so I had no walls. And when I wanted to concentrate, I put headphones on. And so you could use that same trick if you're in your home and you feel like you might need to signal others. Again, be proactive ahead of time and just say, hey, when I've got these headphones on, that means I'm in a work session for 25 minutes, but I'm going to take breaks every 25. And then, if you want to, we can stop and talk then. Yeah, just thoughts. Again, would love to hear if you guys know of tricks that you've used. This is an ongoing battle. Obviously, your friends and family don't want to be mean or rude to them, but this is important. I think if you guys have shown up here today, tonight, depending on where you are, and you're listening to this, I think this is important to you. And so you're not being mean, you're not being rude, but you are respecting the progress that you're trying to make. And you don't want to have the argument in the moment, because then you're angry and then you can't study. So yeah, share any tips that you guys have about working with friends and family, but also staying on your path for studying. That's one of the things that I face. All right. So you agree. Awesome. Thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate it. Oh, and also I think I missed this here, Spectre 42. I'm wondering if that's a Bond reference there. Last video from Fun Function was also about habits. I saw that. I caught it briefly. I didn't actually view the video. I just caught the title, and I thought I need to watch that. I was really curious to hear his take on it because he's so entertaining and energetic and has interesting ideas. So forming a habit is much more productive than struggling. Yes. Yes. And again, there'll be some books in just a minute if you guys want to see references for reading about that. All right, so your inner why, and we're going to talk about motivation. Just about 2 more slides here, and we're almost done. Motivation refers to your inner goal. So, why do you want to learn how to code? An easy answer could be, I just want to get a job. I want to make more money. So that's nothing wrong with those answers. I would say both of those answers are true for me. I'm looking for a career change, so I'd like to get a job in tech, and the salaries that come along with it are attractive. So that's something I'm looking for. But why? What will that do? A question to help you clarify that is, what will that do for you? So if you make more money, will that allow you to travel? And travel is important because you're someone who values new experiences. Or is it get a job? In my case, why get a job? I have an e-commerce business. I'm self-employed. For me, it's 3 in the afternoon where I live, and I can sit on this video cast, I guess, and I can do this right now. That's great freedom. But I'm getting to the point in my life where I'd actually like a team environment. I'd like to work for a company with benefits. I'd like health insurance, things like that. So that's a deeper value. And when I tie my motivation to that deeper value, then I'm more inclined to achieve. So just some advice there. Ask yourself, what does this do for me? And ask that question 2 or 3 times. Don't take your first answer. Think about on a deeper level, what does it really mean for you to learn how to code, and why is it important? Now, another aspect over there on the right side with community support, that researchers discovered that they were looking at AA and why AA was successful. And in particular, AA has a religion component to it. And they were looking very specifically at why that was such a successful piece and why this group dynamic works so well. Well, after a lot of different theories, and they tested them and they tried them and they interviewed people, what they came up with is that when you believe in yourself, you do very well. You progress, you stick to your goals, you stick to your new habits. But when you don't believe in yourself, have any of you come to an algorithm that you just couldn't quite figure out? Have any of you tried to write code, write a project that just didn't come together? I know I have. I know I stepped away from, I believe it was the tic-tac-toe game for maybe a week or two because it was so difficult that I wasn't sure I could do it. Now, I did come back to it. I did solve it. But being in a group can sustain you through those periods of lack of belief. So when you don't believe in yourself, the group can believe in you for you, and that will get you through. So just the idea of community support, thank you everyone for showing up today, and thank you for being part of the cohorts, and I hope that continues. But if you don't, find a group, find the support somewhere, so that when you're feeling down or when you're feeling challenged, that you have others that can say, you know what, you can do this, you've got this. You're experiencing a setback, but that's okay. You're gonna get there. If you keep it up, you'll get through this, and that's what matters. Okay, so just summarizing here, finding your inner why, tying it to a deep value that's important to you. Ask yourself several times, why does this matter? And then in terms of community support, find that group. When you're having challenges, maybe you don't want to post it. Maybe you don't want to say, hey, I'm having a really tough time. This almost gave up. But that may be the very time that you need to post, and that others can chime in and say, oh no, come on, keep on, go, work through this. You can do it. Okay, so I promised you books, and here are some of the books that the information is coming from. And before that, let me share one more thing, which is that don't assume that you either have it or you don't. Don't assume that you're naturally talented or naturally intelligent or that you aren't. In other words, it is not an off or on situation. Basically, a lot of different books that are out now, a lot of studies these days are showing that intelligence and natural ability are actually not the most important thing. Yeah, do they help? Certainly. The example of, a Will Smith in a book that I'm listening to right now says that Will Smith does not think he is the most talented actor, but what he does think is that he will work harder than anyone else. And the quote in the book was, I will stay on the treadmill longer than anyone or die first. So that idea, if you put him on a treadmill next to someone else, he is going to keep on running and keep on working as hard as he can, and he's not going to quit, or else he's going to drop dead from it. So a lot of us might think, hey, Will Smith is just lucky. He's talented. He's really good. But the truth is, he's a hard worker. So discipline, hard work, and persistence are what matters. Sometimes the people who are naturally gifted are worse off. Why? They're not used to practicing. They're not used to doing it over and over again. Things come naturally. So working at something deliberately over time and sticking with it is the only way to achieve mastery. So deliberate practice. Some people say 10,000 hours is what it takes to become a master. That may or may not be true. But what is important is that sticking with something and grit is, definitely what's important. Cool, Ken. Thanks for the comment. Very good. So some of the quick resources here: The Power of Habit, really, really good book. It goes into business. It goes into some personal stories of people who have overcome problems. Very engaging book. This was one of my audio books that I listened to while walking. Another one is Talent is Overrated. And right there, the title says it all. It's exactly what we talked about. And then what I'm on right now is called Grit. And this is totally the idea of grittiness is what causes you to achieve things. And grittiness means sticking with something for a long time. So you achieve by persistence. It's not something that you were born with. And my hope is that that gives you motivation, that when you struggle with something, stick with it long enough and you will achieve mastery. All right, and then finally, just actually some more technical things here that I have found helpful. And these are recommendations actually by the same user that put the curriculum together. I don't, if it's Pixt or P1XT, that is very that participates a lot on the forums and has a lot of good advice, but in particular has a problem with CodePen and thinks that we should be using code editor right away. I think CodePen is great, and I think that it makes a lot of sense to start with CodePen. I also learned that when I went to a text editor, so I downloaded Brackets. I use Brackets now when I code. When I first did that, it was a little bit difficult because I didn't have all the headers set up. I had to kind of think about, do I have my style sheet linked and my JavaScript linked? Do I have the right meta tag here? And all those things were taught to me at one point, but because I wasn't using them regularly, I forgot. So CodePen is great, but I also would encourage you guys start using a text editor or code editor soon. Download one every once in a while, open it up. Get one with a live preview, and basically that means you're coding. And then you can go ahead and you can click on the preview and it will open your HTML and your CSS in a browser, and you can see it and you can edit it on the spot. So I encourage that. GitHub is another thing pushed by P1XT, who thinks that we should be pushing code. I will say, since I have been doing the 100 days of coding, I have pushed code to GitHub every single day. So that's 22 days now that I've pushed code to GitHub. I'm not going to go deeply into GitHub, but basically think about it's a place where your code is uploaded, and if you ever make a mistake and you want to go back, you need to go back to a previous version because you've messed something up and you're not sure what it was. You can now do that. If you've been uploading to GitHub, you can go back to a prior version of your software. If you haven't, if you're just saving to your local drive, now you're out of luck. One of the reasons that GitHub was recommended to me, and when I say to me, it was in a video, is that it is used by companies, and some employers, when they look at you, will want to see if you know how to use GitHub. And some employers, as soon as you interview or apply, might even go look at your GitHub profile and see if you're active and see if you've got code there. If you've got a great long history and all kinds of stuff in there, it's going to look better for you. I have a support system I think we talked about in the last slide. Participate, go to the groups, make comments, share what you're doing, give other people thumbs up. It will make you feel better when you've given someone else a compliment. And then the more you spread that, the more it's likely to come back to you. So what's the phrase? Pay it forward and it should come back to you. And so set your goals, ask for accountability. If you want accountability, and we get this hangout going and we meet regularly, this is a place where you can come and check in, share what you've done. say what you haven't done, ask for what help you need. So use the cohorts that way, use this meeting that way, and I believe that is the end. So Linda, I believe it was, I'm glad you liked the Will Smith quote. I thought it was very cool to hear that. A lot of times we see these people, whether they're actors, they're sports stars or whatever, and we think that they're gifted, they have natural talent. But as the book, and I'm going to go back here, as Grit emphasizes, that is a fallacy. We are mythologizing these stars, and we're thinking they have it a lot easier than what they actually do. And it turns out that they have gotten there by the same hard work that everyone else has. So don't fall into that trap. Work hard, ask for help. And thank you guys for tuning in. I hope this was helpful. The plan for those of you, and I did post this in a couple other groups, those of you in the Best Dev Study group, I'd like to make this regular. I'd like to make it live so you can all talk to me and talk to each other. And we can share our screens. This is my screen today, but in the future, you guys could share your screens, we could share code, and just really talk through challenges. So that's my hope. I'm actually glad today we've gotten up to as many as 8 people watching, which is really cool. Thank you guys for joining, and good luck to you all.